The history of censorship of the arts in Nazi Germany and the consequences of its impact on the world today. Often, when one is asked to speak about the Holocaust, they will often bring up the atrocities committed in concentration camps and Hitler's horrific final solution. But it is just important to recognize his first step in brainwashing his citizens to accept those actions. Through a combination of censorship, defamation, and theft, the Nazis owned Germany's art world by controlling every aspect of their citizens' ability to enjoy and participate in the arts, with many artists, actors, and writers being forced out of work, with many losing wealth or worse. The Nazis created a world where even listening to the radio could lead to your imprisonment. This was an important step in the acceptance and instigation of much more violent means of removing the undesirables from their Aryan society, while manipulating their citizens to turn on their neighbors. In this video, I will use research to examine how the Nazis used censorship in all forms to control the art community of Germany, how it affected this community, how it ultimately was integral to Hitler's final solution, and what ways this information is pertinent to our current society. Adolf Hitler, among the many titles he earned as one of the most wicked men to live, was the one he bestowed upon himself, art connoisseur. In fact, in his younger days, he wanted to study at the Vienna College of Arts, but was rejected twice. Perhaps this rejection had an effect on his beliefs surrounding the fine arts, and later influenced his hateful actions during his dictatorship. Early on in his time as Chancellor, he saw it fit to have his own museum built in Munich to establish his vision of the world. Here he bolstered the work of the classical style. Though it can be said Hitler's view of the classical style is incredibly subjective and did not include many works. Of course, this classical style was exclusionary to works of non-Aryans. This was essential to Hitler's goals of dehumanizing the Jews and the other targets of the Holocaust. Immediately after the opening of the Munich Art Museum, Hitler's government put together an exhibition called Entartre Kunst, Degenerate Art. Works shown at this exhibition were that by artists who were paving the way in new genres of the greater postmodern movement brought on by World War I. This work, juxtaposed against the state-approved classical works, was an intentional psychological ploy to show the public that this work and the artists who made it were not fit for this new vision of Germany. The permanent exhibits were divided into many rooms, each given varying names. One exhibiting what we would consider cornerstone pieces of the abstract was given the name the Insanity Room. Of course, Hitler couldn't accomplish his goals without the help of his compatriots. That is where the key integral figure in the Nazi scheme to control the minds of their people came into play. Joseph Goebbels, this man who was once a sickly child, rose through the ranks of the Nazi Party and soon found a way to use his own artistic talents to manipulate the citizens of Berlin through the paper Die Angriff, or in English, The Assault. Once Hitler took his seat as Chancellor in 1933, Goebbels became the head of the Ministry of Public Enlightenment and Propaganda after Hitler took his seat as Chancellor in 1933, which was in charge of all media in Germany. And with this seat of power, he began campaigns to force the scholars of Germany to align with the ideology of Nazism. On May 10, 1933, this campaign came to a head as a book burning organized by students in Berlin's Opera Square destroyed over 25,000 Ungermann, or un-German books. This, in hindsight, is the beginning of the flames that spread across Germany's hubs of artistic free thought. One of the laws that was instrumental in this war on free thought was the Editor's Law, This law prevented Jews or anyone whose journalistic work was deemed harmful to the Third Reich from being allowed to work in the press. Failure to forbid these laws could cause one to lose their job or worse. With this level of censorship, one of the few ways citizens in this Nazi world could hear outside views was the new technology of radio. Goebbels himself believed in the validity of radio's ability to be used as a propagandizing tool, but he had to acknowledge the fact that foreign broadcasts were able to invade the Third Reich's bubble of influence. It soon became illegal to listen to foreign radio stations. It appeared that Goebbels' ministry truly had control of the minds of their Europe. These actions carried out by Hitler's regime had a massive impact on the art world of Germany and their conquered territories, but no citizens were more affected than the Jewish population. Hitler's hatred for the Jews is well known, but after the dehumanizing campaigns and propaganda push to increase the hate towards them, but before the preluding notes of the Holocaust on Kristallnacht came an important law. The Jewish community of Germany had wealth in their assets, many of which were pieces of artworks, but could be anything from decor to stocks, and the Nazi government wanted that wealth. On April 26, 1938, the decree for reporting of Jewish-owned property was made. This law was used to stock Hitler's aforementioned museum and pay off the debts of Germany accrued during World War I at the expense of the Jewish citizens. Many families went from planning escape to being stuck in a land that hated them. This attack was more than just a way to accrue wealth or rip rights from the Jews. In hindsight, one can see that this was an attack on the very morale of the Jewish population before they would have a physical attack made on them. Germany's censorship not only included the censoring of the airways and the galleries, but also the censoring of who can enjoy the arts, whether in public or private. These actions performed by Hitler's regime had consequences, and no consequences more apparent than the lives lost during the Holocaust. Max Silverberg came into this world in 1878. An entrepreneur, he discovered his love of art after years of hard work allowed his family to rise to a level of comfort unseen by his ancestors. He began collecting works and joined the board of trustees at the Silesian Museum of Fine Arts. But after Nazis took control of the government in 1933, he was forced to voluntarily resign from his positions and had to begin selling his private collection to survive. His son was exiled out of the country in 1938, and 3 years later, Max and his wife were resettled. They spent some time in an interim camp in Grisau, but by their final transport, they were sent to the infamous Auschwitz. His son Alfred declared his parents dead in 1945 after 4 years of no contact. Max's collection is now spread across the world with many pieces missing. Calls to return the works to his family have been ignored from multiple establishments. This was one of many horrid losses that were suffered by the art world. Many more collectors and artists lost their lives at the hand of the Third Reich. Alongside the tragedy of the death of these artists, we have lost important classical works that are still currently missing. We have lost such works as Raphael's Portrait of a Young Man from 1513, Van Gogh's Painter on His Way to Work, and perhaps one of the greatest losses of artwork was the Immaculate Amber Room. Originally constructed in Prussia, it was taken apart by the Nazis, and though it was planned to be reconstructed, it was lost and gone forever. One could say that the lost artwork pales in comparison to the loss of life, and while life is precious, this disregards the beliefs of those very artists and individuals who lost their lives. Art represents the freedom of our lives in all its aspects. and it is our visual door into our history. When artwork is lost, we lose an important lens of society at whatever time it was created, be it in the 1500s or the years immediately preceding World War II. Art is our eternal companion throughout our journey through space and time, and to declare any of it degenerate is to deny our own natural humanity. The censorship of art in Germany has resulted in a key integral piece of our humanity. That loss being losing the priceless perspectives of countless artists throughout time. It can be said that the loss of these perspectives has caused many to lose part of their cultural heritage. We lost a great number of works by artists from the postmodernist, Jewish, Renaissance, and countless other movements. What could we have learned if the actions of the Nazis were never committed? The answers are innumerable, but have we learned from our loss? Some of the world has freedom of expression that would be seen as egregious in Nazi Germany. There are current governments who mirror the censorship seen in that time, and in fact appear to use the past as a guideline for their countries. In Russia, the band Pussy Riot was jailed for reciting a punk prayer, in which they began the recitation with the refrain translated from Russian: "Birth giver of God, get rid of Putin." For this act, they were jailed for 2 years. And in 2019, Hung Lu, a Chinese-American artist, had her exhibition canceled in Beijing. Her work, being anti-war in nature and a commentary on socio-economic issues, with pieces like 12 hairpins of Jinling, featuring 12 schoolgirls and gas masks, was given no reason for the cancellation, though her Chinese colleagues only gave a one-word response: Hong Kong. These governments are preventing discussion. This attack on free speech is censorship, straight from the playbook of Goebbels. We in the West may feel this is not possible here, but the same tactics used by Hitler and his regime are present nowadays in our country. In 2019, Ben Shapiro stated he believes rap isn't music. He spews hyperbolic statements saying rap isn't melodic. This is in total disregards to a vast array of the genre. It would only take an individual a moment to listen to a track from Kendrick Lamar's To Pimp a Butterfly, or the song Tamale by Tyler the Creator to find rap with melody. He then goes on to say, "I hear messages that treat relationships between men and women as something disposable, and these songs glorify the mistreatment of women." The art form overall, which not only has an impact on not just black young people, but is disproportionately listened to by white young people, I don't particularly like a lot of the messages I hear. Which is once again a hyperbole that ignores a vast array of the genre. In so many words, Mr. Shapiro derides an entire genre of music as art for the degenerate. He has deemed it degenerate art. As we can see, the intrepid nature of hate is still alive today, and its purveyors abound, stoking our fears, and enacting acts of censorship through governmental and other influential means. It would seem that the greatest consequence of the censorship of Nazi Germany is that it has given some individuals a playbook to use to keep the voices of their enemies or victims suppressed. But at the same time, it has made itself apparent so that defenders of free speech and the artists who front the battle of perspective can fight it valiantly. Ideas expressed through the arts of human creation are eternal. To quote Helen Keller, "History has taught you nothing if you think you can kill ideas. Tyrants have tried to do that often before, and the ideas have risen up in their might and destroyed them."